Welcome to the All the Stuff podcast, where we jam about money, clutter, and food, and the real stuff under this stuff. Join me, Lisa Carpenter, your resident food coach, along with my co-hosts, money coach Jen Turrell and clutter coach Lisa Sharp, as we help you release what's weighing you down and heal your relationship with food, money, and clutter from the inside out. Welcome to the All the Stuff podcast. My name is Lisa Carpenter, your resident food coach, here along with my sidekicks, Lisa Sharp, our clutter coach, and Jen Turrell, our money coach. And it feels like forever since the three of us have gotten together to record an episode. We tend to batch these because it just makes sense with time management, and we're all working on now 3 different time zones, so it's gotten even a little bit crazier trying to coordinate times. And I am just back from a retreat in Key West, Florida. So the topic we wanted to dive into today was a little bit about numbers, my relationship with numbers. Everybody's making faces if you're listening on the podcast.
I was smiling.
I know. Jen's super happy. She's like, hey, we're talking about numbers.
Right. This is pretty predictable, right?
I'm going to share my trauma and, my story of what happened to me in Key West, and I'm going to get some feedback from Jen Turrell and Lisa Sharp. It was pretty powerful moment for me. So I was at, a Mastermind Retreat helping Adrienne Dorison facilitate this, group of entrepreneurs that came together to really work on their businesses and grow. I was there as a life coach. I wasn't teaching people how to eat food. I actually do life coaching as well. And I was also there to participate. So day one, Adrienne decides that we are going to sit down and do profitability planning for the new year, plot our numbers so that we can have an idea of how to reverse engineer the things we need to do in our business to create profitability. So if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, my journey with my finances has been kind of on a roller coaster. I've gotten used to tracking my money coming in and coming out, and I've gotten a lot more comfortable with it. However, I've never actually tracked the money really specifically in my business. So I've hired a new bookkeeper. We're starting a whole new relationship. We're cleaning everything up. I'm feeling very grown up and CEO-like in my business. And I was feeling pretty confident about where I'd gotten to with my relationship with money until I sat down at the table to do this planning. And out comes the Google sheet, which is like an Excel spreadsheet. And I could literally feel myself starting to have I could feel the anxiety washing over me. So here I am with these other entrepreneurs, and a lot of them are very, they were comfortable with numbers. They thought this was great fun. And I was like, oh my God. And it's everything in me to stay at the table, because there was a real part of me that was like, who needs coaching? Who needs a deep conversation? I'm available right now. Anything to get away from the table and not do that, which would have been very, very easy for me to do, to not admit my shit, not admit my stuff, and to just find ways to not deal with it. But I knew that this was really imperative in me stepping up and being the CEO of my business. So I sat at the table, I pulled up my cell phone, I pulled up all the numbers I'd been tracking, so I actually had numbers to put in. And then it came to predicting, well, if I'm going to, launch EAT in the new year, how many women do I think will be registering, or how many do I want? Plugging that all in, putting in all my expenses. How much is my VA going to cost? How much are my taxes going to be? Putting in everything so I could actually see where I was at, putting in all my one-to-one clients and looking at all those numbers. And as uncomfortable as it was, I shared with everybody, because if I was going to be there coaching them on their most vulnerable bits, I was also wanting to share how vulnerable this made me feel, because I didn't even know how to use the sheet or create, you can get it to add things up and stuff. I didn't even know how to do that. So they were teaching me how to do that. But when it was all said and done, and I sat and looked at the numbers, and I was very, very conservative about my predictions for what's going to be happening in 2017, that's when I really lost it, because I've never actually seen on paper where my business is at right? Because a lot of the numbers were based on where I'm at right now, the number of clients I have on my books right now, the number of clients I have on payment plans right now. And it was shocking for me to actually see where I was at in my business and see the potential of where it needs to go. And it was kind of one of those come to Jesus moments. I had to excuse myself and go outside and have a really big cry, because it was realizing that all these dreams, all these things that I've been visualizing, all these things that I've been working towards for years were right in front of me, and I had no idea because I was so afraid of the numbers. Okay, so this stems back like years, ladies. When I was growing up in high school, I was the girl in the class that was like, what's the easiest math I can take just to get by? I always felt like I was stupid because I didn't understand how numbers worked. I wrote a post about how I still have nightmares about those two trains coming at each other from opposite directions at different speeds, and when are they going to intersect? Like, oh my God, why would I need to know that?
It's a literal train wreck, right?
It's a train wreck. I committed at a very early age that I was never going to be a bookkeeper or an accountant. And I didn't need numbers. I had a calculator. What else did I need numbers for? And here I am learning that numbers are so powerful, even when it comes to launching a product. The numbers don't lie. It's pretty straightforward. If you get this many people into, we call them funnels online, but if you get this many people following you, a certain percentage statistically will convert. So you can kind of back out like what your income's going to be. So it's not throwing spaghetti at the wall. Oh, I hope it's this, right? It's actually using the numbers to say, this is possible for me. So I really felt like I let go of a whole bunch of old stories, old garbage. So it's certainly not second nature to me, but it was an incredibly powerful exercise. Even as I'm tracking my, paying down my debt now, which I've consistently done, ladies, for 3 months.
Woohoo!
3 months, huge. So I would love to hear about your relationship with numbers, spreadsheets, stepping in, if you've had to step into the discomfort of that. I think Lisa Sharp and I are very similar, whereas Jen, you're going to be like, numbers rock, they're awesome. Why would you not like them? But I'd love to hear.
I went through high school having a similar experience of being like, I'm a humanities person. I'm English and history and literature, and I hate to try to blame a single teacher for it, but I feel like there are a couple of teachers that I do blame for it who basically made me feel like I was dumb in front of the class for not getting something. And it was just a couple years ago that I feel like I finally actually got Algebra. And you know what did it? There's an app called Dragonbox. And I was testing it out because a friend of mine recommended it. This is Jordan Shapiro, who is an amazing educational and technology writer who writes for Forbes and all these magazines. He was recommending it because he was testing with his kids, and I watched all this stuff, and I was like, oh my God, this might be something really good for my kids. And I went and tried it, and it teaches you the fundamentals of algebra without you realizing it because it's gamified. It looks like a game. You're playing. At first, it's little dragons and eggs and things, and eventually they turn into X's and Y's, and you realize you're actually, as you feed the dragon, you're balancing equations. Totally brilliant. If anyone has kids, there's one for 5th grade and under, and then one for above 5th grade to get you through it. And I think there was a point in my education where I missed some very fundamental pieces of algebra. And because I could always use context clues and I was relatively smart, I figured things out, but I never truly understood it. And that affected every math class I took from then on. Up until calculus, which I avoided. At Bryn Mawr, we had to take calculus to graduate. I put it off until the last semester of my senior year. And I loved it. When I took calculus, I was like, oh, this is finally to do something figuring out, the 4-part analysis of a curve is to make a bridge. This makes sense. Finally, we're actually figuring something out. This is for architecture. This is for, it makes sense to figure out how much materials you need, all these different things. Whereas everything before that, figuring out when the trains are going to crash into each other, that never did seem that useful.
Why do you need to know that? And I think that was part of it with numbers is I looked at it and thought, why do I need to know this? I'm never going to be a bookkeeper and accountant, yet I use math in my business when I'm working with clients around their nutrition. For buying furniture, it kind of comes in handy to know the square footage and how to figure all that out. But it's those stories that we picked up at an early age, right? I picked up the story that I just couldn't learn, where I think I was similar to you. I didn't have a teacher that was able to bring it to light for me in a way that made sense, that I could see how I would use it in my real life. And once you've picked up, like, that story is a real shame story.
Yeah.
Right? Once you're marinating in that, it's like that puts you into that threat, and you're literally, my brain was just like, no, we're not going there, because this is too painful for me to even try and learn it. How about you, Lisa? Or sorry, go ahead, Jen.
I was going to say the only other college level math course that I took, because I was able to avoid them all, was probability and statistics, which was where I learned, before we hit record, we're discussing the numbers, and Lisa, you said the numbers don't lie, and I was like, oh, except for things like Enron. You know, there are ways to take probability and statistics and use interpretation to twist things around, which I think a lot of us try to do to ourselves by not laying all the numbers out on a spreadsheet like you did at that place. And can I just throw in a slight promo for my website, which is I do have a bottom line calculator on my website. If you go to jenturrell.com/accountable, and it does pretty much what you're talking about. You put in all your different programs and your different offerings and options. And you can either do it monthly or annually. And then below, it has you figure out all your expenses and your tax. Well, based on the U.S., you know, you can put in 33% or whatever it is that you're going to put as your tax rate, and helps you calculate what the bottom line will be. Because I think that's something a lot of people do avoid looking at, is they think either top line revenue, like, oh, if I do this launch, I'm going to make, you know, $57,000 if I sell 40 people spots at this rate, without really figuring out what it costs you and
exactly
underlying expenses. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. But go ahead, Lisa Sharp.
It's a good calculator. I've used it. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, that's a cool thing that you did, and that's really helpful. It's a helpful tool for people.
Totally free.
Totally free. Love that. Love that. Yeah, I really relate to both of what you said. I was definitely one of those kids that was like, I felt like I just had a really hard time with math, and that all of the, you know, the liberal arts sort of stuff comes really easily to me. And it wasn't until I got into college and was forced, I had to take some remedial math because I didn't have everything I needed in high school. So, but like once I got some really good teachers, I was like, oh, this isn't that hard. And it was really more about the story, that I'm not good at this, and that it's embarrassing to admit that I don't know how to do X, Y, or Z. And the irony is that I married somebody whose father is a math professor, which I think is really funny. And my kids are really good at math. And I, you know, I consider myself to be much more of a math person now. But, you know, in terms of what you were talking about, Lisa, just like the spreadsheets, there's something, I do think this has to do with personality type. You know, some of us are more big picture. Some of us are more detail oriented. Some people enjoy analysis, factual analysis more than like a really broad analysis of something. So in that regard, I am certainly capable of doing those things, but I don't really enjoy doing it for very long. So I will get like all, you know, hot and bothered and create a bunch of spreadsheets and stuff, and then I'll forget about them and I just won't update them. So I was looking through my spreadsheets this morning, and I was like, oh yeah, I already created that system, because I like to create systems. And that's part of my personality. That's part of like my background in librarianship. I like systems and they make sense to me, but I don't like implementing them for very long. I get bored and I want to go do something else. So I have a whole, like we did another episode on planning and organizational systems and that sort of thing. And, yeah, I actually have my Erin Condren planner that just the UPS guy just brought right before we hit record. So, you know, and part of that is because I will, you know, create these things and then walk away from them after a while. And, you know, and I think that's super common. I mean, at least with my clients, I hear that all the time. And so that's why simplicity is so important. And like if you create those sort of spreadsheets where you're looking at your business, you're looking at your numbers, they don't have to be crazy complicated to get to the empowerment stage. You know, I think a lot of us, it's sort of like the, you know, any of the finances stuff that we've talked about before, or with doing your food log, whatever. It can be really simple and be equally as empowering. You just need to really look at all of the different facets and not just the easy part. You know, because that's like what you were saying, you know, like, Jen, about that, like statistical analysis. Well, if you're only looking, you can manipulate things to back up what it is that you want to believe. So, so numbers can be tricky, and you do have to really look at that. But bottom line is that it's really an empowering thing, and it can be a fun thing. And if it's not a particularly fun thing to do, you don't have to do it in a spreadsheet. You could do it on Post-it notes. You can do it on a whiteboard. You can do it, like, there are a million different ways to do this, but looking at the story of numbers in your own life, I think, is really, really helpful. So like that, and that goes for tracking habits. We're in a group together with Adrian Dorison. This is like the Adrian Dorison shout out session. But we were talking about, like, what are your priorities, and like figuring out in business in particular, but this is very applicable to anything, is like that you really can only do a very small handful of things at any given time and see the success that you want to see. So if you're working on your weight loss, if you're working on getting the clutter out of your house, if you're working on your finances, it's really good to just focus on, like, tracking your time, tracking your money, tracking with the stuff that you're buying, your shopping habits, tracking your food, those sort of things. But just, like, really honing in and focusing in on one or two or maybe three of those things in a month. Any more than that, it just becomes this spreadsheet from hell, right? Like spending like half your day just plugging in numbers and stuff, and you'll get tired of it, and and then it kind of loses its luster because it's too complicated. So just really focusing on a handful of things is better than getting into the deep analysis. You can leave it deep. You can hire somebody to do the deep analysis for you.
I think that was my downfall with the 90-day year. Which I did with, that's something that Adrian did and promotes and really likes. And I'm finally sneaking back to it. But I think I tried to have 12 objectives for a 90-day period, and I was supposed to have 3. And I was like, but I have multiple businesses. How can I only have 3? Like, I need to have things moving forward in all these different areas. But it's true. I think part of the downfall was the tracking system. If I did a 2-week sprint and I didn't hit my goal, I found it really hard, and I was trying to test out his app as a beta tester and do all this stuff, and I found it really hard to go back and figure out how to readjust things, rather than if I just have a simple spreadsheet where I have a prediction and then next to it I have the real number. That's an easy way for me.
That's very concrete.
Yeah. And that's what I'm going to do with this spreadsheet that I set up in Key West, is I've got, my predictions, and then beside it, I'm going to be able to put in my actual, and I'm challenging myself to stay with it for the year. And because the only way to make something that's uncomfortable comfortable is by staying with it. And I know for me that this is really one of my Achilles heels that needs to be done. Like, it needs to no longer be a trigger for me, but in order for it to no longer be a trigger, it means I have to stay with the discomfort of doing this. So it's not a one and done, oh, I'm over it. So I definitely have a different perspective now, and I'm building a new relationship. But I think that that's one of the things that people get lost in. They think they've done it once and now they're good to go. And you don't slay your shame gremlins overnight. It doesn't happen. You have to really stay with it. So it'll be interesting to see how the year goes, how well I am at continuing to track these and really paying attention, because I do understand that they are just predictions. So not attaching myself to what I've predicted, opening myself up to possibly more than what I've even predicted, but just allowing the numbers to tell the story of my year to see what's possible. So I really challenge everybody as we're heading into, I think this episode will probably go live sometime in December. Look at the things this year that you didn't want to look at, that you're kind of not wanting to pay attention to, the things you're avoiding, the things that seem like, oh my gosh, that's no fun at all. And which one of these things can you embrace going into the new year with a new perspective? Who can you find to help you create that pathway? Is it learning more about your money? In which case, maybe you need to be connecting with Jen Turrell and going through part of her program, just to start to dabble in the things that make you uncomfortable, right? If you got clutter everywhere and you've been avoiding that, I got to talk to you about my filing system.
And I just told Lisa, hey, my floor is finally clear after the
right?
holiday. My filing system. This is the room we shove things into.
Totally, right? My filing system is sheets of paper and paper clips. I could maybe do a little bit better, but it needs to be simple like that. But what things in your life do you need to simplify that you want to let go of you know that there's a lot of emotion attached to it that doesn't need to be there? What do you want to lean into in 2017? Who do you need to work with? Where do you need to find out more? If it's, food, your body, your weight, that's my wheelhouse. Head over to my website and check out the freebies that I have there. What are you ladies? So I am going to continue to challenge myself with my numbers and being a CEO in my business and no longer being afraid of this stuff. But what are each of you going to be pursuing in 2017 that makes you slightly uncomfortable, but it's time to start the work?
Ooh, I think you and I are really in the same boat here, Elise. And working with people who are more analytically minded is super helpful to me. So for me, it's really about my business numbers too, and doing the projection that, like you had talked about. That's something that I have really avoided in my business, and I can see how that has really kept me stuck in a number of different ways. And so that's super uncomfortable for me. But I know that, like you said, it's just a matter of getting in there and kind of getting the baseline, which is a big pain in the butt. I mean, there's no two ways about it, trying to, collect all that information and extract it and, put it all in one place is a big process. But then once you have that, then just revisiting it's kind of like, balancing your checkbook or something if you haven't done that in a long time. It just takes a while. But then once you get there, then it's like that sort of the gremlin of, oh, I'm so bad at this is so hard, sort of quiets down, because then you've done it, and then it's just a matter of revisiting. The more comfortable we get with it, the easier it becomes, and the more growth that we see. So that's definitely going to be. I'll be on the phone with you, Lise. We should do a check-in. We should do a numbers check-in.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking
accountability would be good. Yeah.
With the podcast continuing too, we can periodically bring this back up too throughout the year. And I want to join you guys too, because one thing, I have two major things for the new year. One is that with us leaving the old business that was the main thing that supported my family, now having to make our other businesses support our families in a more realistic way. I've always been able to approach my online business in a pretty relaxed way because I had these other things going on. And I need to change that some. And as we were talking about the numbers, one thing I thought of is I really love playing with calculators online and doing these different things much more than I like actually making sales. So, some of us can hang out with projections, and I love making projections with other people when we can look at their businesses and talk about it and see what's going on.
It's always easier to look at somebody else's numbers.
It is. And
so true.
I love the stuff that I do online, but because it has not had to support me financially, I've taken a much lighter tone with it all. It's been kind of whatever I make is awesome and extra. So that's one thing, is I need to start really taking it more seriously. And the other thing I want to do is that I have just last night read a book and I downloaded an app to start tracking some serious numbers for us. I just am finishing up NaNoWriMo right now. And I have been able to write 1,666 words a day. Okay. Yesterday, I wrote 5,000 words in a day.
Wow.
And I got a book called Write 5,000 Words an Hour. And I was like, what? Are you freaking kidding me? And some of the advice is about getting Dragon software and doing these different things. But I am actually starting a publishing imprint. I decided it's going to be called Sand and Stars. It's going to be the literary one. And I'm working with Neve Arthur. We're writing a book together in the new year, as well as each of us writing our own. And I realized that the way I've done our record label all these years, we just started it and put our own stuff out. And yet for some reason with writing, I've always felt like there are all these gatekeepers and all this stuff I have to do. And I have to get published in these literary magazines. I have to be taken seriously, and I have to be able to get reviews and all this stuff. And suddenly in the last few months, something has just kind of opened up and been like, why don't you just do your own thing like you always do? Why not just start your own publishing house? Why not, with Amazon, it's easy. You can do these things. So I'm going to start to publish, and I'm planning on publishing several books because I've been writing. I mean, I have my novel up there that I've worked on forever that's been sitting there for several years now. I collected all my short stories together in the last, couple of months and started looking at them and was like, oh, I actually have a number of things that I could publish. I did an autism blog from 2008 to 2014, and I was like, I actually have a lot of words on this computer that I can do something with. So that's one thing that I want to start doing is actually like planning out and publishing books along with it. And to see, I don't know, the 5,000 words an hour, that sounds a lot, but 5,000 words a day, I like that idea. I'm going to see if I can do that more often. Not all of it was usable, but I wrote some major scenes for 2 stories that I realized were connected. And yeah, it was I had this exciting moment where I was like, I think this is what real writers feel like when they're working on things. And I was doing all this research into purple eyes and, do you know about violet eyes, that some people actually have violet eyes, like Elizabeth Taylor? It's kind of a rare, potentially genetic thing that might be linked to albinism, being albino. So I was reading up on this, and I gave one of my characters purple eyes, and it got really exciting once I don't know, it's just this weird thing.
Came to life. I love how you said how real writers feel like you're not a real writer, but that's a whole other episode right there.
I know. Well, I'm going to admit it on the show. That is what I've always wanted to be. When I was a kid, I wrote stories. My daughter and I make up stories every night to get, I've always wanted to be a real writer, and I've never felt like a real writer because I don't have.
Here's the thing, Jen.
It was published by an important person. You know what I mean? Or
if you write, you're a writer. And the only person that's keeping that title from you is you.
I know.
Right? It's like, so really think about that, because this is the thing. When we attach money to it, that's what spins us out, right? Like, I'm not successful because the money wasn't in the bank. Not the truth. But on that note, we really should wrap up this episode so we don't go
Maybe we could do another episode on
Maybe we'll talk about this again.
Whatever. Okay.
Right? Those stories. So, if you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure you leave us a review, like us, share us over on iTunes, and please make sure you check out our websites. We each have different freebies that we offer, and you can find those links down below. Where else can they find us?
If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear what you're tracking in the new year and what you're working towards. Are you going to be doing numbers along with us, since we're all going to be doing it? Is there something else you want to track?
Yeah, and come over to our Facebook group. We have a whole group where you can come over and hang out and ask us questions and continue the conversation about this. I think that'd be really interesting to see what other people are wanting to track, what might feel kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah. What is everybody avoiding?
What?
What's everybody avoiding?
Yeah, what's everybody avoiding? Let's have that conversation.
I want to hear.
Come over to the Facebook group. The link will be below.
Perfect. All right, ladies, until our next episode, thanks for hanging out with me. It's always so fun. And I'll see you guys on the next show.